panels are popping up while you're playing. Kind of give the player hints and clues or close-ups on the villain's face when they're having kind of a long-distance conversation. It really frees you up and
really adds to the immersive quality of the overall gaming experience.
Now that the technical aspects of the game are nailed down, Treyarch must work on making Ultimate Spider-Man live up to its name. Treyarch is set on making Ultimate Spider-Man the biggest and most ambitious Spider-Man game ever made. To pull it off, they'll stretch every resource they have to the limit.
It's a pretty amazing thing, the scope of a project like this. We are currently staffed at 85 people on this project. We have a group of around 12 to 15 animators, 17 programmers, 7 production staff members, 15 game designers. We have a whole team of 3D modelers who create all the geometry for the game, and then a whole subgroup of that of guys who do the 2D artwork. We have a special effects team, the whole audio department. By the time this game is done, well over 100 people have had their hands on this project.
Well, there's definitely a collaborative process that goes on between our lead designer, Brian Reed, and our creative director, Chris Bussey, and Brian Michael Bendis. They kicked around some ideas for what a storyline was. We had extensive research at Activision, what the most popular Spider-Man characters are. One of the ones that just sort of rose to the surface was Venom.
When we introduced Ultimate Venom into the comic book, our sales spiked. They almost doubled. It was shocking because we were doing all right to start with. I had no idea that Venom was that popular.
We decided that we wanted to use Venom and do a Venom storyline.
When Peter Parker was a boy, his dad and his best friend Eddie Brock's dad worked together to create what's called the Venom suit, and it was supposed to be a cure for cancer.
And they created this hideous, monstrous suit that feeds off of the living force of people. Turns you into a superhuman, but also makes you just uncontrollable. They tried to destroy their work because it was going to be turned into a weapon. Eddie Brock's father saved a little piece of it for his son to find, sort of his legacy. Both of their parents died under mysterious, tragic circumstances, and that really kind of sets them off on their different paths.
10 years later, Eddie has found a sample of the suit, and it's been part of his college work to do research on it. Eddie puts on the suit, he becomes permanently bonded to it and becomes Venom.
Eddie loves the power. He craves the darkness. Instead of wanting to get rid of the suit, he wants to learn how to control the suit and really be the supreme evil.
So that's what happened in the comic book. Where we come into the story, it's 3 months later. Eddie Brock is still loose in New York with Venom on him and is completely out of control. And as the two come back together, this mystery of how the suit came into being, what happened to Peter Parker and Eddie Brock's parents. So we have all these questions that have never been answered that we get to tell everybody for the first time.
To truly tell the tale of Venom and Spider-Man, Treyarch makes Venom a playable character.
We definitely wanted to have that be a big part of the game. And there's this central storyline that's going on, and there were key points where if you only knew it from the Spidey side,
I guess there's no such thing as a slow day when you're a big-time superhero.
you would never get what was going on, and so it was essential that we had you play from the Venom side.
It shows the connection between our two playable characters that wasn't gone into as much depth in the comic book storyline.
I love playing Spider-Man. It's fun to swing around, but the idea of destruction and being this kind of massively big, violent, very strong character that can really wreak havoc in the city is very exciting, really fun, and that's a pretty cool thing for a video game.
As fun as it is to be Spider-Man and to swing around the city and to save people, and the antithesis of that, there's a hedonistic pleasure of breaking things and destroying things and blowing stuff up and eating people.
We wanted both sides to be playable, but different.
Or there's just totally different locomotion and combat systems for each player. Spider-Man is very graceful, he's agile, his combat's frenetic, he's acrobatic, he's fast, he jumps off the walls. He's everything you expect a young 15-year-old spaz to be able to do after being bit by a radioactive spider.
It's more frenetic. It's fast, it's in, it's out. It's off walls, off light posts, off guys.
On the other hand, you got Venom. He's just hulking, enormous, he's heavy, he's slow, he punches holes in things. There's a tremendous sense of weight.
Venom's got kind of this super jump. And he's about being monstrous and rah, taking guys out with one swing, using his tentacles to wrap people up and beat on them.
He consumes them inside his body, and he spits them out unconscious and covered in slime laying on the sidewalk. It really just balances out the gameplay for us.
Spider-Man and Venom won't be alone. Treyarch has virtually limitless access to the legendary Marvel Universe, and they're gonna take full advantage of it. Treyarch and Activision have set out to make the mother of all Spider-Man games with Ultimate Spider-Man. A big part of their goal is to include as many cameo appearances as possible. The list of heroes and villains who will appear in their game is awe-inspiring.
Of all the Spider-Man games that have come out, this is going to be the largest slate of supervillains in any of the previous Activision Spider-Man games.
We were going to grab everything we could at Marvel and throw it into this game. We've got Johnny Storm. We have got just this pile of Marvel heroes in our game.
We were introduced to tons of characters in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Some we've already met before, some we've never seen in the Ultimate book before, that people have actually been dying for, like Ultimate Beetle and Ultimate Silver Sable is going to be a big one. But plus tons of cameos. You got Nick Fury's in it, Mary Jane's in it.
The Ultimate, franchise opens up a new take on all these bad guys. The Ultimate Rhino looks very different from Rhino from the classic series. These are characters you've heard about over the years in the Marvel universe, but you're seeing them kind of again and new for the first time, which is pretty cool.
The biggest challenge is to make sure that everybody is their own special kind of unique thing. Rhino is 3 stories tall and charging through Queens, knocking down buildings, throwing cars at Spider-Man during their boss fight. Then when you fight Green Goblin, you're chasing him through the streets of New York again, but their fight ends up crashing through the roof. And they end up fighting in the Grand Hall there. And it's fireballs everywhere, and Spider-Man fighting the Green Goblin.
We have more interactive superheroes and supervillains than any previous Spider-Man game.
One of the things that's really nice about the Ultimate Spider-Man brand is that it really centers a lot around Peter and his life. So we bring those characters to life in the game as well. So we're really able to kind of dig deeper into Peter and his interactions with the people around him.
Heroes and villains aren't all that's packed into Ultimate Spider-Man.
What we really want to do is bring you Spider-Man's New York. It means you get to go to all of the landmarks that Spider-Man could go to. You get to go to Queensboro Bridge, where Green Goblin nearly killed Mary Jane.
We actually sent a couple of our artists to New York during pre-production to go and photograph all over New York. We photographed textures and just little things like manhole covers, signs going into like Little Italy and Chinatown, and taking pictures to get those flavors.
Queens is where Peter lives with his Aunt May. It's where he goes to high school. So it was just kind of the logical step to take for us to expand this environment to include Queens. It just gives the player the freedom to kind of go anywhere they want in this city and be that heroic Spider-Man character.
As the September 2005 release date for Ultimate Spider-Man draws near, development begins to wrap up. The people at Treyarch and Activision look back at what they've accomplished and are confident that the game represents their best efforts.
Mostly, I'm really excited about the story we get to tell and the events that we get to do and the fact that we actually fit into the comic book continuity. For this little brief moment in time, I actually get to touch on Peter Parker's life and do something to it. It is really the coolest part of this project for me.
The stuff that we're doing in this is going to be carried on. Vince is going to carry those storylines in the comic book, and he's going to be making sure that stuff that's happening in the comics are at least tangentially related to what's going on in the game.
It's always a challenge to take what you start out with ideas and designs and to actually make them come to life in the game. And that's really a testament to the talent that we have over here at Treyarch.
This was one of the best experiences I've ever had, and there's so many people involved. When we create the comic book, it's just a handful of people, whereas there's so many developers and special effects guys that I was just kind of bracing myself for this thing to kind of lose its edge, and it never ever did, and it was a really awesome experience.
Marvel is so lucky to have Activision doing these games. I was really sucked into the world of Spider-Man while I was watching that game. It's unbelievable. I think that these video games are just about the greatest kind of entertainment you could find anywhere.
Credits. We don't need to watch it.